Welcome, everyone. Here we are. We have the sports writers, just about a full house, but not quite. We're missing the big guy, Phil Stacey. Joining us here, Nick Kukuru, sports editor of the Gloucester Times, Matt Williams from the Salem News, and Nick Giannino of the Salem News as well. And gentlemen, I guess the big story, I mean, it's a greater Boston story, certainly a North Shore story, is the Bishop Fenwick story. MIAA announcing their teams are not going to be allowed to play in the state tournament games, all sports for the next year, meaning 23-24. Matt, I want you to tee it up for us a bit, if you could, because I know you did the prelim stories for the Salem News. Nick Giannino was at the event last night, Monday night at the high school. But Matt, why don't you set us up and tell us what you think is going on here?
So, what do you guys want to talk about today? um, I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Like, are there perhaps questions that people have about things that are unclear, or it's just such a deep, meaty story, and there's been a great back and forth, since Friday night. The MIAA released their punishment and the number of rules that were broken on Friday. Over the weekend, Bishop Fenwick responded and said that in their view, the punishment was related to one fifth-year waiver that had three mistakes on it. And Fenwick said, we acknowledge the mistakes. They were honest mistakes. We weren't trying to be deceptive. And we don't think this is a fair punishment. Monday, the MIAA released the full letter of decision that was sent to Bishop Fenwick, which is available on the Salem News website and also on the MIAA website. I would encourage anybody to go read it. It's pretty dense. I mean, it's written by lawyers, but there's a lot in there, and it detailed the lies that Fenwick told on the waiver. Of the three, I think two are pretty damning for Fenwick. One is kind of like, well, I could see where an honest mistake could happen on that. And the letter also mentions Fenwick played a seventh grader on the varsity baseball team, did factor into this decision because they detail that situation. And then they say, moreover, this is not the first time that we've had problems with you people. My words, not theirs. I'm summarizing. They didn't, quote Mr. Costanza in the letter there, but, nonetheless, so that was definitely a factor too, which Fenwick left out of it over the weekend. So the MIAA releases that at about 3 o'clock yesterday, not only because of all the questions and criticisms across the state, but I think personally they wanted to get out ahead of Fenwick's meeting last night. Fenwick held the meeting last night. The parents got to ask some questions. They were upset, obviously. The president and the board of trustees of the school didn't really say, I don't think, anything new than what they had said to me over the weekend. That they feel that these are honest mistakes, that they did not intend to deceive, and that this is an unfair punishment. For one mistaken waiver to punish the entire school is unprecedented, and it's not right. And that's really where we stand. The dialogue between the MIAA's lawyers and Fenwick's lawyers is ongoing. The next MIAA board meeting is on August 8th. So I imagine that dialogue will continue, and perhaps it will be discussed at that board meeting. I mean, it's worth noting that the vote from the board was unanimous. There was not one person out of 25 on that board that felt that Fenwick deserved a second chance. And it should be noted, my colleague or friend noted that Wachusett was busted for lying on a waiver, but they apologized. They not to ban them from the tournament, and the board voted to allow them in the tournament. So Fenwick lost their vote unanimously, and Wachusett, I guess one is the word. It feels like the wrong word, but they voted not to ban Wachusett. So get a unanimous vote from that board, I think. But I mean, that kind of sums it up. I don't mean to drone on. I mean, again, we got to read between the lines. And the MIAA handbook is that rule. What do you mean this is the rule? What do you mean this isn't America? All this kind of nonsense. It's all spelled out in the handbook. You know, people don't usually read the handbook unless you're a nerd like me. But I mean, it's right there, readily available online. So I would encourage people that are curious to go in there and read it.
Was this an infraction from this school year, or was it from previous? It wasn't previous years, or was it?
Okay,
from...
great question, Bill. So I should clarify. What happened was Bishop Fenwick applied for a 5th-year waiver for a baseball player. So what happened was this baseball player had played at a different school in 9th grade, transferred to Fenwick, repeated his 9th grade year, and so in order to play as a senior, would need a 5th-year waiver. He did not get it. He never played this year. He did not set foot on the field in 2023. But because Fenwick lied or had falsehoods or misrepresentations, whatever word you want to use, stuff that was incorrect on the waiver, the MIAA felt that they intentionally tried to downplay this kid's ability and experience in order to sneak him through and get that waiver. And so that is where the infraction was. And they feel that Fenwick has not been accountable in admitting that these mistakes were not simple, honest mistakes.
So it's an error on a waiver application then. Does that sound right?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And so I guess,
my understanding too, and Willie can, confirm this, but I think the whole situation was compounded with the situation regarding St. Mary's Danvers from a few years back, the middle school, where they had middle school athletes competing for the high school teams at Bishop Fenwick. Bishop Fenwick President Thomas Noonan made it pretty clear that they believed that St. Mary's Danvers and Bishop Fenwick were their own entity, one entity. So they weren't breaking any rules. But apparently the MIAA disagreed. That partnership was considered one entity. So they made them, take those kids off the teams. They made them forfeit a few games that those kids played in. And they said, you can't have these kids playing for the high school team in the future. And Fenwick complied with all those, so that there wasn't really any punishment there other than, getting those kids off the teams and making sure it didn't happen again. But I think because that was another issue with the school, that it wasn't a great look when they came to this situation with the 5th-year waiver. That's my understanding of it. Willie, you can expand on that, but.
No, I think what you said makes sense, and I think that what happened was Fenwick, the MIAA received an anonymous complaint from a Fenwick parent that their son was cut from the baseball team in favor of a 7th grader.
Right.
And so the MIAA wrote to Fenwick and said, "Hey, what's going on here? Do you have middle schoolers or whatever, or is there a violation or something?" Fenwick wrote back and said, "Nope, all set." And then the MIAA had to go back to them and say, no, you never got approval for this St. Mary's Danvers business. So I think it's the fact that if you read in the letter, if you kind of read between the lines, the fact that Fenwick wrote back and said, no, we're fine. And then the MIAA had to come in and say, oh, no, you're not. I think that was strike one and possibly both strike one and strike two in this situation. They feel like Fenwick has been monkeying around. Now, whether they are or not, it's not really for us to judge. I mean, how do you judge intent, right? That's one of the most difficult things to do in a court, in journalism, in any job. The MIAA said it was an intentional deception. Fenwick says, no, it was an honest mistake. And who do you believe? How do you judge motive and intent? I mean, only, only the Lord above knows which one of them is telling the truth, right?
That's right, and I should share now appropriately. I was called for jury duty yesterday, and to this point, Matt, thank goodness for Essex County, I did not have to serve. There was no trial or anything like that, so I did not have to weigh intent or any of those things yesterday in Lawrence Superior Court or wherever it was.
Well, let's hope that this thing does not wind up in a court someplace. I don't really want to be deposed. I don't want to have to call Harvey Specter in to protect my rights or anything.
Yeah, it's just difficult because the MIAA really makes their own rules, right? There was no description under this particular rule. What was it, 87.6? That that described, an actual punishment. So they came up with this punishment. The board of the MIAA came up with this punishment on their own, and like Willie said, it was unanimous. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to reverse that and hard to convince them otherwise. In my mind, we hope it doesn't go to court. Obviously, we hope they can figure something out here that would benefit the student athletes a little bit better. But it's an unprecedented situation. It's going to be very difficult. And the season, the school year's coming up, right? This is middle of the summer. We got another month, and we're going to be kicking things off here. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds. And it doesn't seem like the MIA is in any rush to get back to Fenwick right now. Like Willie said, they have the meeting on August 8th. So we'll probably hear more by then, but it's fluid right now.
So, and I should note too that, as far as the court situation goes, on the one hand, the rule book says the board can enforce any penalty that it sees fit.
Correct.
Which is vague. And a lot of times the courts frown upon things that are vague. However, last summer, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts did issue a ruling that basically said the MIA can do whatever it wants. In the past, the courts have sided with students. This time, however, they did not. The way that this decision reads, it's very similar to the decision that allowed Roger Goodell to do whatever he wants in terms of suspending Tom Brady. And I don't mean to make light of the situation, but that's, I think, a case that everyone on the North Shore remembers and will understand. So without, quoting a whole bunch of legalese from this decision, that's essentially what it says. This was a case that Austin Prep, which has since left the MIAA, brought against the state to try to get a 5th-year waiver that was denied. And the Supreme Judicial Court upheld the MIAA. So they're going to try to use that as precedent to say, look, we can do whatever we want. And, I don't know. Should they not? I mean, one of the big talking points for Fenwick was that the MIA is accountable to no one. That they kept saying that, right? They must have workshopped that. They felt like that was going to hit really well because the MIAA doesn't have a lot of fans across the state of Massachusetts. And while that's somewhat true, I would say that they're sort of accountable to teachers and educators, right? Because the board of directors of the MIA is made up of principals and superintendents from around the state. So they're individual. Right. They're individual schools, some parochial schools, right? There are Catholic and parochial schools on the board of directors. None of those. I'm sorry?
None from Fenwick, though. I think we should make that clear.
No, not at this time. I mean, it rotates, right?
Right.
There's some local ones. I believe the principal of St. John's Prep is on the board of directors at the moment. Dan Bauer, who's the superintendent of Danvers now, is on the board of directors. He may be rotating out because he changed jobs. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it's people like that. It's not all public school people. It's people from around the whole state. And, again, the vote was unanimous. No one sided with Fenwick, not any of their Catholic school peers, not any of the public schools. I mean, so it is, it is not just Bob Baldwin acting like Sheriff Roger Goodell in this situation. The decision was made by the board, and the board is made up of educators. So, I know that feels maybe a little bit in the weeds, but, it is not one person that's acting as judge, jury, and executioner. It is a whole bunch of principals and supers from across the state.
I'll just add, I'll go to Nick Kukuru here for a comment, but I'll just add, it may be the right decision. I'm not sure, but it just seems so unfair for all these student athletes at the school that had nothing to do with this, that now will not be able to play in the state tournament. Albeit said, the state tournament's not the end of the world for anybody, for the high school or anything. But on the other hand, it does seem to be that you're punishing students who had nothing to do with this, opposed to the adults. And I'm not saying that I don't know where the punishment should go, but I'm just saying it doesn't seem like it should be leveled against the students, all these students that are going to school, getting an education, trying to trying to do the right thing, play sports and go to school. I think we all applaud that week to week on these podcasts. So, Nick Kukuru, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll rebut your point a bit, Bill. I do feel, I mean, a lot of innocent athletes are absolutely affected who did absolutely nothing wrong. But I think where it come down to was this was an administrative failure there, not a coach of a specific program. I think it went above that. And when it's an administrative failure, you kind of got to hit the whole operation.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing
you know,
with you either, by the way.
I know,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
not disagreeing with you, feeling bad for the kids because, they didn't do anything wrong
Right.
here. But that's the impression that I get out of it. And I will say I covered that, that game last year, one of the
I
games
know.
that Bishop
Yeah,
Fenwick
you're
used the
right.
seventh grader.
I forgot about
And
that.
Matt Antonelli didn't come across as being nefarious to me. In fact, I didn't know he was a seventh grader. I only knew because Matt Antonelli told me he was a seventh grader because he got the game-winning RBI in the game. So if they were trying to skirt rules, they weren't hiding
Right.
it at all. I think he was let down by his higher ups. Really, I mean, I just think of a lot of other schools in our area where I know I cover Gloucester, so I know that their middle school waiver claims that their middle schoolers are only allowed on the lowest possible team that they have. So freshmen or JV, the middle schoolers have to play. And I know a lot of the schools that we cover, I don't think that seventh grader, they would have put the kibosh on that before this player got on the field, and he got on the field multiple times. I feel like that's kind of an error above the coach. The coach is thinking someone will stop me if this is wrong, and I
Oh,
don't think he thought
100%.
anything of it.
The middle
Yeah.
school rules are very confusing. So I do understand why they kind of goof that up a
Mhm.
little bit.
Yeah.
Because whether the school is on the same property and under the same roof changes the rules. If it's the same principal changes the rules. Certain conditions they're only allowed to play junior varsity. Certain other conditions they can play varsity. It is confusing. So I understand why they got caught up in that. I also do understand why the state looks at it and says, wait a minute, this school is 10 miles down the road in a different zip code. Like this is not the same situation as Manchester, Essex, where the middle school's right down the hall, and you don't even have to go outside to get there. Right. So
Right.
I sort of see both sides of it on that one. The middle school rules are very confusing. I also agree with Bill that it's unfortunate that the sports that aren't involved are getting punished. I think from the state's perspective, they're saying like, well, if you're unrepentant in lying about this waiver, how do I know that all the waivers you send me next year aren't going to be full of lies? And for that matter, how do I know that a bunch of waivers you might have sent me in 2021 and 2022, games that have already been played, teams that have already won championships, how do I know that those ones weren't all full of lies too? So I think that's why they feel like it's an institutional failure and a lack of institutional control, to borrow the college phrase, that brings such a hammer down with it. But that is a prevailing notion, I think, across the state. Like everybody sort of agrees that hitting the tennis team and the golf team is probably a little bit harsh in this situation.
All right, gentlemen, we'll jump around. We got to touch on a couple of different topics here. Matt, I'll lead it off with you. I don't know what you want to jump to, but we've got some baseball, some football, some other notes. I'll let you take over and run through a few topics for us and bring these guys in.
Well, I don't know. I'll say the Legion State tournament has been postponed for today, Tuesday. So Beverly Salem, one of the final four teams still playing. They're going to have to play Franklin in an elimination game on Wednesday. If they win, I think they would have to win either 2 more games total or 3 more games total to get to the Northeast Regional Championship. But, Final Four in the state, that's pretty good for the boys, that they're, I think, 17-6-1 or something like that this summer. So great run for Mike Levine and his guys. And it'll continue on Wednesday as you hear this down in Natick against Franklin, which is, I believe Franklin won the Division I state championship in baseball or made it to the final anyway. So they got a pretty loaded team, but should be an interesting task. Beverly's going to have their top pitcher ready to go, Noah Guanci, and also Riley Finnerty out of Salem. So should be a nice run as those guys try to stay alive.
Any updates on 7-on-7, 7v7 football?
Oh, it was a great showing. I had the opportunity, I was watching the clock, my phone was blowing up all weekend between all the different stories going on, and happened to be at a cookout about a mile away from Fenwick. And I was texting with one of my buddies from one of the other news outlets that was there. And I said, "Oh, let me know if one of my teams makes the finals and I'll run over." And as it turned out, there were two teams in the finals, Peabody in the big division and Salem in the small division. So that was pretty cool. They both lost in the finals. Salem lost to St. Mary's Lynn, actually on a Hail Mary. It was unbelievable. Corey Grimes led Salem down, took the lead with a touchdown pass to Devontae Azuna with about 20 seconds left. And it's running time in these things. So the referee said, okay, time for one play. We'll give St. Mary's one play. They started back at the 40-yard line, and the kid threw a bomb right to the pylon. And the kid, I think his name was Tyler Guy or Tyree Guy, something like that. He caught the ball in the air, managed to get 1 foot in, and stole the championship from Salem. So it was a great finish. And it's funny because Salem it kind of had happened already, because Salem had taken the lead, and then St. Mary's previous touchdown drive before Grimes's 2-minute drill to take the lead was also a one-play bomb to this kid. So he's going to be a force this fall, certainly. But I think for
Is his dad a
Salem,
former English or classical star? I just
I,
remember
I
back when I played
Oh,
against a
yeah.
guy. There was a JP guy and a Brandon guy on one of each of the Lynn schools, and they were both ridiculous.
I don't know, because one of their sons was James Guy that played for St. John's a couple years
Okay.
ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if maybe this kid could be James Guy's brother, for all I know. I mean, he's a little bit taller and thinner than James was, but that could just be, receiver body versus running back body, or maybe it's a cousin or something. But, for a Salem team that's rebuilding and is, coming off what, a 7-win season, has almost their whole team back, veteran quarterback in Corey Grimes, speed all over the field in Pujols and Curtin and Azuna and Lane. I mean, they're for them, it's the best showing they've ever had in the 7-on-7 to come in runner up. And, they want to make the playoffs real bad this fall, and, prove that they're not just a team that can beat up on the lower division teams. And I think that's just a great start for Salem. But from what I understand, the 7-on-7 was a buzz about what was going on at Fenwick too. And
Exactly.
a lot of the head coaches were watching from further away than they normally would, because the MIAA is cracking down on out of season coaching. They didn't want to be accused of coaching these teams, because technically the assistants and the quarterbacks have to run these things. The head coaches can't be there calling plays. So there were a lot of guys like, with binoculars standing further away than they had in previous years.
Matt, that would be a sting operation.
Yeah,
They're probably
yeah.
doing a sting operation there. Yeah.
No, nobody's taking any chances, with
Something from the bush.
what came out on Friday.
Oh man. But you are right. That story broke right at the same time. I was on Twitter too, and there was reaction from the coaches right there at Fenwick, where it was happening. Unbelievable. Can't make this stuff up, really. Coaching change, Matt. Maybe I don't know, Nick want to weigh in on this, but there's going to be a new softball coach at Peabody High School. Tawny Palmieri not coming back next year.
Yeah, that's that. And I'm sorry, just kind of got distracted there. But Tawny's not going to return. She was told by the administration, and she's pretty upset about it, obviously. There are some parents that are pretty upset about it. They started a petition to bring her back. Let's see, 885 signatures as of this moment. They're going to hope to bring that to the school committee, see if they'll intervene. I don't know if they will. Obviously, in fairness, we should note that school administrators are not allowed to comment on personnel issues, right? So we're getting one side of this. They're not going to come out and say she did X, Y, and Z, because there are privacy laws and HR laws that govern that kind of stuff. So, full disclosure, if there is a good reason, we don't know what it is. Maybe there isn't, maybe there is. We just can't say at this juncture. And so this will be ongoing, but I'm sure that there's going to be a line out the door of people excited to scribble a Betancourt in the pitching position on their lineup card and win a bunch of games. So I wouldn't think they'd have any problem finding a coach if they decide that she's not coming back.
No. Nick
Um,
Kukuru, oh, go ahead, Nick Giannino. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Where do we want to, what direction we want to go here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say,
Golf?
I was
You
just
got some
gonna, I
golf?
was
No,
just
no
gonna,
comments on Palmieri. I mean, it's
oh,
unfortunate.
no. I know. Yeah. But Nick Kukuru, anything, any Cape Ann updates to share with us here?
Not much this week. I'm looking forward to, next weekend, the ITL playoffs start.
Yeah.
I know we'll have the Townies and Mariners from my area in there. Defending champs Hamilton Generals have clinched, along with the Raleigh Rams. So no surprises there. That's been the four best teams in the league for the last about 15 years now, maybe even more. And it's going to be, those four again this year. It's always interesting now. Expect it to be again.
Yeah.
Should mention the nice little league runs we had. No more local teams. Nick had Gloucester bow out in the district finals, and then we had both Danvers, American, and Swampscott in the Section 4 championship there. And Danvers, had a good run. They were 2-1 in the sectionals, but what was it? Run differential, Willie, that kind of screwed them there, and they end up not qualifying for the championship game. So Andover got the upset, I would say upset win over Reading. I saw both those teams. I was really impressed with both of them, but good win for Andover to move through to the States, and nice season for Danvers American, and nice season for Swampscott getting that District 16 championship, which they hadn't done in quite some time.
Yeah, unfortunate. I mean, the funny thing is, Jed Sanchez, the great pitcher for Andover, he, if it didn't rain on Friday, he would not have been eligible to pitch against Reading. And so it rains Friday. He comes back Saturday and throws a 17 strikeout no hitter.
17 Ks.
So you got to tip your hat to that kid. I mean, that's a performance.
That's not an upset in that regard. I mean, that's quite the performance, but.
Yeah, but no, you're totally right. Because I mean, even if Andover had won the game, 8-5 or 9-8 or something like this, Danvers was in really good position to move on. I mean, really, the only thing that would have kept Danvers out was basically like a shutout win, and this kid went out and threw a no hitter. So bad break for Danvers. But what are you going to do? I noticed that the state tournament this year is a clean double elimination format, no pool play. So no pool play, no tiebreakers. Maybe they should bring that back to the sectionals too. I mean, I don't know. Like it's kind of tough to explain to kids. Like, well, you all have the same record, but you got the tiebreakers. I mean, it comes up every year, right? And it's part of learning and living life and stuff. But I mean, geez, that's a lousy way to have to go home. But it was still an awesome run by those guys. They have every reason to hold their heads high.
Absolutely.
All right, gentlemen.
How about Jaylen Brown?
Big money, big money, big money.
Contract. He's the highest paid NBA player ever now. What was it? $305 million over 5 years?
Yeah, until next year, though, right?
Yeah, until next year, right?
He was just the first one to come up at the right time.
So
or even until next month, right? Like,
in his fifth year of his contract in 28-29, he's going to make $69 million for the year. So the NBA money is getting out of control. There's no slowing down. Nobody's really worth that money, but I guess for the Celtics, it makes sense to pay him and lock him up and keep this duo going. They made the moves around the edges. They brought in Porzingis, so we'll see. Maybe Jalen's working on his left as we speak.
He could be. We'll say Bergeron's out too. My Nick Kukuru's favorite hockey player of all time, right?
I like Bergeron. I just get bugged that some reason he's the most protected athlete in Boston sports athlete of my lifetime. Kind of bugs me a little bit. But with that said, first ballot Hall of Famer. His numbers should be retired. He's one of the top 2-3 Bruin of my lifetime. I'd say Ray Bork is probably the only one that I maybe definitively put ahead of him that I've seen. Cam Neely maybe at his peak, but not the full body of work. So, but
yeah, exactly.
That's just about everything. Hey, how about these the Patriots here? We got this training camp starting up here pretty soon. We got NFL started. Got some fights in camps. I guess where was that, down in Philadelphia or the Jets? It was the Jets that had that this week. I think I saw that story. Yeah. So, but the Patriots. How about let's go around quickly. What are your initial thinking on the 2023 Pats? Nick Giannino?
Not super high.
Yeah.
I think not to mention the division they're in with Buffalo, New York got better. Miami's going to be good. I mean, it's a tough division, and they got to play those guys twice. I know we got the extra game this year, but I wouldn't put them more than 10 wins. I don't think. I think it all comes down to Mac Jones, though, right? Is he going to progress this year and show more of the signs he did in year two, or is he going to, or year one, or is he going to go back and sputter the other way? So I don't know. I'm just not super high on him, but he's the best option we got right now. We got to ride him out, and maybe he'll prove me wrong.
Matt?
Why is Jack Jones playing? I mean, like John Morant is banned for quite a long time. They're suspending people for like gambling and fantasy teams every other day in the NFL. And this man that allegedly got on a plane with like an arsenal, I don't know if he thought he was headed to the Ukraine or what, but he's just not even suspended. This seems ridiculous to me. And it seems like it's going to be a big distraction in training camp because they got to figure out who's going to play defensive back, right? And if this guy's getting all the first team reps and then all of a sudden he does get suspended 3 weeks from now, like doesn't it kind of goof up all your preparations and stuff? I don't know. That one puzzles me a little bit, I have to say.
Fuchs?
I think the Patriots will be better than last year, but I mean, will they have anything to show for it? Their schedule's tougher. The AFC, I think, is absolutely stacked, where I think the NFC kind of stinks. But the AFC is so good that I can't really envision the Patriots being a true contender. But I also agree with Nick here that if Mac Jones is good, I think they'll be good and make the playoffs. If Mac Jones isn't good, they won't be very good.
Yeah.
I think their defense is going to be very good, though. I do like their defense.
I like the
that.
D. I feel good about the D. That's one thing that they got going for them right now.
I think I think Nick is right too. Like I think they're going to be better than last year. I think they're going to be better to watch. Now that might not mean they'll win more games because they got a tougher schedule, but I think at least it's going to be a representative National Football League product. Whereas at times last year it looked like a Pop Warner team.
Which
last
Nick,
year
you
was
think?
weird. As bad as it was, they were at least one egregious review away from making the playoffs, which is like it just seemed like they were so far away from that caliber of a team, which it was just such a strange season.
Yeah, last year they looked worse than their record. This year I think it's going to be the opposite. They're going to look a lot better, but the record might not be as good because of the schedule.
All right, gentlemen, some great stuff this week. You put it together. We did it. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will talk again soon.